The boy's body lay half buried in the snow, curled against the log as if he'd tried to make himself small enough to outlast the cold. Sam Whitaker first saw the boots, thin leather stiffened by frost, then the trembling fingers barely visible under the drifting powder. When he knelt beside him, the boy's breath came in shallow, broken gasps, a rattle of life hanging on by threads. His eyelashes were crusted white, his cheeks a raw, wind-burned red, and one side of his helmet strap had frozen solid against the skin of his jaw. Sam touched his shoulder lightly. The boy's eyes opened just a fraction, glassy and terrified, as if death itself had nudged him awake long enough to witness the moment. Sam pulled off his glove and pressed his warm palm to the boy's neck. He was freezing through. A few more minutes and the forest would have claimed him entirely. Sam slid his arms beneath the limp body and lifted him, feeling ribs like twigs beneath the uniform, the weight disturbingly light, the way a bundle of sticks is light just before it snaps. Snow fell from the boy's back as Sam carried him toward the outpost, pressing him close to share what little heat he had left. The boy said nothing. He didn't have the strength. He only stared, half-conscious, memorizing Sam's face with that desperate look people wear when they're not sure if the person holding them intends to save them or bury them. Sam didn't speak either. Words felt too heavy for the moment. He pushed through the bunker door and laid the boy near the stove, the only warm place for miles. He unfastened the German's boots, set them beside the fire, and rubbed life back into the boy's stiff hands until faint color returned. The boy's breathing steadied, his eyes fluttering open and closed, each blink slower and more trusting than the last. Sam gave him a sip of hot water. The boy drank with trembling lips, and for a moment their eyes locked, fear fading into something softer, though neither of them quite understood what. By dawn the boy was strong enough to stand. He braced himself against the bunker wall and looked around as if waking into a dream he wasn't sure he'd earned. When their eyes met again, Sam saw the boy recognize him, not as an enemy, but as the man who'd given him fire when the world offered only ice. The teen raised a hand, not quite in thanks, not quite in goodbye. Then he stepped out into the pale morning and vanished into the trees. Sam watched him go until the forest swallowed the last trace of his shape. He thought that was the end of it. He was wrong. The next morning Sam walked out to check the fuel drums, his breath fogging in the brittle air. The forest was quiet, too quiet, as if all living things had agreed to hold their breath at once. He kicked a frozen branch aside and felt a strange prickle at the back of his neck. A presence! Several presences. He turned slowly, and the world changed. Shapes materialized along the ridge, first a handful, then dozens, then hundreds. German soldiers, their coats camouflaged against the trees, rifles slung with silent precision. Sam blinked hard, thinking it was some trick of the light, but the shapes didn't vanish. They multiplied. Higher up, on the crest of the hill, more figures stood poised like statues carved from ice. To the east, a second line. To the west, another. In seconds, Sam realized what he was seeing, a full regiment, maybe more, arranged around his outpost in a perfect, cold ring. 3,000 soldiers, silent as snowfall, their breath rising in faint plumes that drifted like ghosts in the morning air. Not advancing. Not aiming. Just watching. Sam's pulse thudded against his ribs. He reached slowly for his rifle out of instinct, then froze mid-motion. What good would a single rifle do against an entire army? He stepped backward until he reached the bunker wall and leaned there, trying to control the rising panic. If they'd wanted him dead, he wouldn't have woken up that morning. The realization brought no comfort. Several horses tied near the shed snorted nervously, shifting from hoof to hoof, stamping at the air as if the scent of danger pressed against their nostrils. Sam whispered to them in quiet tones, but even he knew his voice wasn't steady. There was something deliberate about the formation, something ritualistic, as if the forest itself had assembled to pass judgment. Sam scanned the ridge again and saw a break in the line. A single figure stepped forward, descending the slope with measured steps. The man wore an officer's coat, long and dark, the fabric moving like a heavy curtain with each stride. His hat sat low, shadowing sharp features carved by frost and responsibility. 2 soldiers flanked him, but they stopped halfway down the incline as if instructed to remain nothing more than shadows behind their commander. The officer walked the final stretch alone, boots crunching softly in the snow until he stood 20 yards from Sam. They stared at one another in a silence so deep the ticking inside the bunker stove seemed loud enough to echo across the valley. When the officer finally spoke, his voice carried a clipped, deliberate English. "You helped someone of ours." The shape behind the officer shifted. A small figure stepped forward, the boy. Now standing straight, wrapped in a fresh coat, cheeks no longer blue but flushed with returning life. He looked different, almost unrecognizable, except for the eyes. Those eyes, wide, uncertain, searching Sam's face for something he couldn't name, were the same. The officer tilted his head. "Why did you give him warmth?" Sam swallowed hard. His throat felt dry despite the cold. "He was dying," Sam said simply. "Anyone would have done the same." The officer's gaze held steady, not unkind but unreadable, like a man weighing the soul of another with nothing but his expression. The boy whispered something in German. The officer nodded once, then turned without another word. He walked back up the slope, rejoining the silent ranks. The boy followed. And just like that, the forest reclaimed them. But the soldiers did not leave. They held their positions on every ridge and rise, a ring of patient shadows waiting for something Sam couldn't yet understand. Night fell with them still there. The next day came, and still they remained. By the 3rd day Sam felt the pressure of their watchfulness in every movement he made. He kept his fire low, knowing smoke was visible for miles. He rationed his food, uncertain how long this silent occupation would last. Sometimes he glimpsed brief flickers of movement, soldiers shifting positions, adjusting coats, brushing snow from their rifles. Yet none approached. None spoke. They observed him like a man in a cage they were deciding whether to use or simply walk around. On the 4th morning Sam opened the bunker door to find a small bundle placed neatly on the ground. Inside was a chunk of dark bread and a folded scrap of wool. A gesture, neither threat nor comfort, but something in between. It made the silence heavier. By the 5th day Sam found himself talking aloud, not to anyone in particular, but to the room, to the fire, to the horses, to the emptiness that pressed against the walls. Sometimes he thought he saw the boy at the ridge, watching. Other times he wondered if isolation was twisting the shadows into figures that didn't exist. Each night, Sam lay awake beneath his thin blanket, listening for the faint crack of branches, the shift of boots, the rustle of coats, signs that the forest full of soldiers still breathed around him. He did not sleep long, and when dreams came, they came cold. On the 6th morning, his hand trembled as he poured hot water into a dented cup. The steam rose and vanished into the air as easily as his sense of certainty. Whatever was happening was not over. Something waited in the stillness, building toward a moment he couldn't yet see. Snow drifted steadily the morning Sam heard engines in the distance, first a low hum, then the grinding roar of something heavy pushing through half-frozen mud. He stepped outside, squinting into the pale light. The German ranks were still there, lining the ridges like frost-bitten statues. But they shifted now, glancing southward with quiet anticipation. The sound grew louder. Sam felt his stomach twist. Those weren't German vehicles. A moment later, the first olive-drab truck emerged through the trees, followed by another and another. American flags painted on the sides. Helmets he recognized. faces roughened by winter and suspicion. A patrol of American soldiers and local militia, 30 men, maybe more, rolled straight toward his outpost. One of the trucks braked hard, skidding across the icy ground. The men jumped off before the wheels had even stopped turning. Whitaker, a lieutenant, barked, stomping toward him. "What the hell is going on up here? We got reports of movement. Heavy movement." Sam tried to speak, but the lieutenant's gaze had already shifted to the ridges. Christ almighty, more soldiers climbed out, rifles raised as they scanned the tree line. "You didn't think to radio this in?" the lieutenant snapped. 3,000 Germans sitting on top of you and you stay quiet? Sam felt heat rising behind his eyes, the kind that comes from too many days alone with terror. "They haven't fired a shot," he said. "Not one." The militia captain, a civilian volunteer with a scarred jaw and permanent scowl, stalked forward. "That doesn't mean they won't. Where are their positions? How long have they been here? Are they preparing an attack? You better not be holding out on us." Before Sam could answer, one of the militiamen kicked open the outpost door and began searching through his things. Another lifted Sam's logs, flipping through his notes as if looking for coded messages. The tension grew by the second, and Sam could feel the German eyes burning holes through the distance behind him. "Stop," Sam said sharply. "There's nothing in there." "We'll decide that," the captain muttered. A younger soldier, barely older than the boy Sam had saved, leaned forward on his rifle. "Funny thing," he said quietly. 3,000 Germans surrounding one American and he's still breathing. Feels off to me. Sam didn't answer. Anything he said would be twisted into something worse. The lieutenant stepped closer, lowering his voice. "Whitaker, if you're cooperating with them, I'm not," Sam said. "They were here before you arrived. They're not attacking. They're watching." "Watching?" The lieutenant scoffed. "For what?" Sam hesitated, then spoke the truth, simple and bare. "A boy. I helped one of theirs. He would have frozen to death. I dragged him inside, kept him warm. That's all." A silence fell over the men, thick as the clouds overhead. Then someone scoffed. Then another laughed bitterly. "You helped a German? You out of your damn mind? You let the enemy walk out alive?" Sam stood straighter. He was dying. He wasn't a threat. He was just a kid. The militia captain spat into the snow. "That kid is the reason they're here. They're protecting him. Or you. And we're not leaving until we know which." He signaled a group of his men. "Fan out. We're getting answers the hard way if we have to." Fear surged inside Sam, not for himself, but for what these men might trigger. He knew the Germans wouldn't tolerate an American force poking around in the tree line. They would hold fire as long as they could, but even patience had limits. Sam raised a hand. "Don't go up there," he warned. "If you push them, they'll respond." "Let them respond," one of the militiamen snarled. "We didn't come all this way to freeze in the woods while Krauts camp on our land." The younger soldier pointed his rifle toward the ridge. "Traitor," he muttered under his breath. "Should have let you freeze too." Sam's jaw tightened. He had no weapon raised, no defensive stance, yet half the men seemed ready to shoot him for breathing wrong. The lieutenant stepped closer, tension pulling his voice tight. "Whitaker, I need you to tell me exactly what you know about their positions. Distances. Numbers. Routes. Everything." Sam shook his head. "If you march up that hill, you'll die. All of you." "So you refuse to help your own men?" the captain growled. I refuse to send you into a slaughter, Sam replied. That boy I saved, he wasn't a threat. He was alone. I did what any decent man would have done. Any decent man, the captain repeated mockingly, would have let nature do the job for him. He stepped forward until his face was inches from Sam's. Where are they hiding their weapons? Where's their command post? Which direction did they come from? Sam didn't answer. Not because he wanted to protect the Germans, but because he knew that answering would unleash a tidal wave of bloodshed across the valley. The lieutenant's voice sharpened. Are you refusing a direct order? Sam didn't move. I'm not giving you anything that gets men killed for nothing. The captain snapped his fingers. Two militiamen grabbed Sam by the coat and wrenched him forward. The younger soldier shoved the barrel of his rifle against Sam's ribs. You're one of them now, he hissed. Should have known. Sam clenched his teeth but didn't fight back. His breath fogged in sharp bursts, each one stinging against the cold. Stand down, the lieutenant barked, but even he sounded rattled. The men were on a razor's edge, any spark capable of turning them on each other. And that spark came a moment later. A sound cut through the air, sharp, piercing, echoing off the trees like a blade across glass. A single German whistle call. The outpost fell silent. Another whistle answered from the opposite ridge. Then another from the west. Then dozens more, weaving through the trees in a pattern too coordinated to be anything but a warning. Swift movement rippled across the hillsides. German soldiers stepped out from behind trees, from snowbanks, from shadows Sam didn't know existed. They weren't advancing. They didn't aim. But their sheer number, their precision, their icy discipline struck terror into everyone who saw them. The lieutenant's face paled. The younger soldier's rifle trembled. The militia captain swore under his breath. Jesus, someone whispered. The Germans filled every ridge and hollow, an unbroken ring of silent authority. Sam could almost feel the pressure of their eyes as they looked down at the Americans, judging how foolish they'd be. The captain backed up a step. We're pulling back, he muttered. The lieutenant didn't argue. His voice shook only slightly. Mount up. Now. No sudden moves. Half the men ran for the trucks without being told twice. Engines coughed to life. The younger soldier kept staring at the hills as if expecting the trees themselves to come alive. You're damn lucky, he said to Sam as he backed away. One day that luck runs out. Sam didn't respond. He just watched them go. The Americans retreated down the trail, swallowed by the forest, leaving only churned tire tracks in the snow. The whistles faded. The movement on the ridges stilled. And the valley fell quiet again. But the silence wasn't empty. It was waiting. That evening, as the sun bled red over the treetops, a figure appeared at the upper ridge. The same officer from before. And beside him, the boy. They descended the incline with slow, steady steps, snow crunching in rhythm beneath their boots. Sam met them halfway, his breath forming a mist between them. The officer studied him in a long, measuring silence. Then he spoke. 6 days, he said. We watched. You did not call soldiers. You did not point guns. You did not betray. He reached into his coat and pulled out a folded piece of dark cloth, a patch marked with an insignia Sam didn't recognize. He held it out. For you. Sam hesitated, unsure whether the cloth was a gift or a warning. The officer continued, You helped one of ours. We do not forget. The boy stepped forward, drawing a breath that quivered only slightly. Thank you, he said in English, voice small but clear. You saved me. Sam took the patch, feeling the rough stitching against his fingertips. The officer nodded once, firm and final. "But understand," he said. "Your people, they will not like this." He gestured to the patch. "To them, this makes you enemy." Sam looked at the cloth, then at the boy, then back at the officer. "I didn't do it for them," he said quietly. "I didn't do it for you either. I did it because he was dying." The officer studied him one last time and gave a faint, almost imperceptible nod. Then he and the boy turned and walked back toward the forest, the trees swallowing their shapes as if closing a curtain behind them. The Germans melted away soon after, fading into the ridges until the valley held nothing but silence and the distant echo of their departure, leaving Sam alone again with nothing but snow, stillness, and the patch clasped in his cold trembling hand. The days that followed were quieter than any Sam had known, the kind of quiet that settles not from peace, but from the absence of something enormous that has finally lifted away. The Germans were gone. No silhouettes on the ridges, no shifting outlines in the trees, no distant murmurs carried by the wind. Just a long white sweep of snow beneath a winter sun, stretching across the valley like a clean slate waiting to be marked again. Yet Sam knew the silence wasn't emptiness. It was aftermath. It carried the weight of all that had been decided in those 6 days, by him, by the Germans, and by the men who had come hunting for a reason to spill blood. He'd chosen a path that no one else in these woods would have taken. It left him standing somewhere between two worlds, two armies, and two visions of what honor meant. Still, he felt lighter than he had in weeks. He sat on the step of the outpost in the early dawn, patch in his hand, turning it slowly between his fingers. The stitching formed a sharp symbol, an insignia of the German battalion that had encircled him. It was a promise, and a warning, and something else he couldn't quite name. He'd tucked it into the inside of his coat earlier, as if hiding it might soften the meaning. But he kept taking it out again, watching how the morning light slid across the threads. It was strange that a piece of cloth could feel heavier than a rifle. He tucked it back into his coat, then stood to begin his rounds. He shoveled snow from the entrance, checked the generator, and fed the horses. Routine brought a sense of normalcy, but the truth was that normalcy had no home here anymore. Not after what had happened. By the middle of the second week, Sam had repaired the outer fence and patched a bullet hole in the shed he hadn't noticed before. He didn't know how long he would remain at this outpost. Orders might come any day. But until then, he kept to the work, kept to the silence, kept to the understanding that something in him had shifted. He wondered if the boy was safe. If he had returned to his unit. If he thought of the night by the stove and the warmth that had pulled him back from the edge of death. Sam hoped so. He found himself glancing toward the ridges more often than he realized, waiting for a glimpse of movement, a shadow that might mean someone was checking on him. But each glance returned nothing but wind and snow. 3 weeks after the siege broke, Sam heard footfalls crunching on the trail. This wasn't the heavy rumble of trucks or the disciplined march of an army. It was lighter, smaller. A patrol. Another American one. His heart sank with the knowledge that trouble often traveled in groups that small. He stepped outside before they arrived, hoping to keep the conversation in the open, away from the bunker that still carried the ghost of the boy's presence. 4 men approached, 2 soldiers and 2 militiamen. He recognized the youngest from the last time. The one with the shaking rifle and the sharp tongue. The one who'd called him a traitor. The young soldier looked Sam up and down with a disdain that no longer surprised him. "We've been hearing things," the soldier said. "Rumors." One of the militiamen added, "Some folks in town say there were Germans all over this ridge. Enough to take out half a battalion." The older soldier squinted. "Funny thing is, no one believes you survived that without giving them something in return." Sam kept his expression still. "I didn't give them anything," he said. The young soldier smirked. Heard you got a little gift, though. Sam stiffened. He hadn't told anyone about the patch. The soldier stepped closer. Where is it? Sam didn't answer. Show us. The demand hung in the icy air. Sam didn't move. He wasn't afraid, but he felt the tension twist around him like wire drawn too tight. The young soldier reached forward and grabbed Sam's coat. The moment the flap opened, the patch slid out, landing in the snow between their boots like a dropped confession. The men stared at it. A German insignia. Clear as day. The militiaman's lips curled. So it's true. You're marked by them. Sam picked up the patch, brushing away the snow. I'm not marked, he said. I made a choice. A choice, the young soldier spat. To save one of theirs? To save a boy, Sam corrected. A human being. The soldier shook his head. You're a fool. That patch makes you the enemy. To us. To everyone. Sam held the patch against his chest, his voice steady. If refusing to kill someone makes me your enemy, then you're chasing the wrong war. The older soldier stepped forward, holding his rifle low but ready. We're supposed to report this, he said. Command will want to know. Sam nodded. Then report it. I'm not hiding. The militiaman studied him with narrow eyes. We should take you in now. Let a judge decide what you are. No, the older soldier said softly. He's no traitor. The young soldier scoffed. Oh, now you decide he's a saint? No, the older man said. I decide he's alive. And the only reason he's alive is because he made a choice none of us would have. He stepped back, lowering his rifle entirely. Let command decide. Not us. There was a long silence. The young soldier hesitated, anger giving way to something closer to confusion. Or maybe it was fear. He muttered something under his breath and turned away. The patrol left without another word. Their footsteps faded along the trail, swallowed by the woods. Sam stood alone in the cold air, patch still in his hand. For a moment, he considered throwing it into the fire, letting it burn and vanish into ash. But then he slipped it back into his coat, inside, not outside. Not hidden, but not displayed either. A memory, a symbol, a quiet truth he would not deny, even if the world didn't understand. That night, as the last light faded, Sam walked out to the edge of the clearing. The wind brushed against the trees, whispering secrets across the snow. He looked up at the ridges, half hoping for a sign, half afraid of what another sign might mean. For a long moment, there was nothing. Then, movement. A solitary silhouette appeared at the highest point, just distinct enough to recognize the shape. The boy. Standing tall, still, watching. Sam breathed out slowly, the mist rising like a small offering to the dusk. The boy lifted a hand, a gesture gentle and respectful, not a goodbye, but an acknowledgement. A reminder that what had happened between them mattered. That it had changed something neither army could name. Then the silhouette turned and vanished into the shadows, leaving Sam alone with the night and the quiet strength of the choice he had made. He returned to the bunker and lit a small lamp. The flame flickered softly, warm against the edges of the world outside. Sam sat down, feeling the weight of the day settle into something he could carry with him. Something honest. Something he could live with. He touched the inside of his coat, feeling the patch. It wasn't a badge of loyalty or betrayal. It was proof that even in a world torn apart, a single act of mercy could echo through the snow, changing the course of men and armies without a single shot fired. Sometimes the bravest thing a man can do is choose not to fight. And sometimes, that choice is enough to reshape an entire valley, if only for a moment. If you enjoyed this story, click the video on your screen now to watch another forgotten tale from the war, one where courage and compassion mattered more than bullets or orders. Subscribe to join us as we uncover more stories like these, and let us know in the comments where you're watching from. Your voice helps keep these memories alive, and we're grateful to have you here.